Welcome to part 11 of Iran's Poisoned Arrows, Girona. At the time of Tudela, Girona was not yet important. 2 days' journey from the city of Barcelona, where there is a holy congregation, including sages, wise and illustrious men, such as Rabbi Sheshet, Rabbi Shealtiel, Rabbi Solomon, and Rabbi Abraham, son of Chiste. This is a small city and beautiful, lying upon the sea coast. Merchants come thither from all quarters with their wares, from Greece, from Pisa, Genoa, Sicily, Alexandria in Egypt, Palestine, Africa, and all its coasts. Thence it is a day and a half to Girona, in which there is a small congregation of Jews. We can see there that Girona at the time of Benjamin of Tudela was small and insignificant, a small congregation of Jews. The office of the Narbonne Nasi moved to Girona in Spain shortly after Tudela in 1194 AD. To understand this move, we begin with an anti-Semitic incident that started in 1180 AD. Things fundamentally changed north of the Pyrenees. Philip Augustus of France imprisoned all Jews, had them dispossessed, forced converted to Christianity, or deported. Given the centuries-old Herodian Jewish presence in France, this is a whole lot of Jews in jail. We can put one and one together and see a cruel Philip who tortured Jews just for being Jews. Christians were enriched at the expense of the Jews, so the tale goes. Instead, a humanitarian emerges. Philip helped free his French towns from seigneurial authority. He robbed the Jewish leaders from their lucrative and corrupt tax farming business, reorganized the government administration, i.e., fired the Jewish administrators, and supported an emergent Christian bourgeoisie. Why might he have done that? Because the leaders of this genius Jewish system had no moral limits to their abuse of the oppressed French population. The Bible commands it thus. His portrayed anti-Semitism was national self-defense against a group with double loyalties, with their primary loyalty not in their host's interests. We should doubt that Philip incarcerated all Jews, maybe all Jewish leaders, and perhaps for a reason, and perhaps not only Jewish leaders, unless they still controlled 100% of the administration. I cannot leave out that he had 99 Jews burned alive in one town, a credible number for those who cannot count to 100. Before rushing to another judgment, the why is left open in the story, as seems custom. Knowing how historical numbers are inflated, perhaps 9 leading Jewish criminals were prosecuted and given a death penalty. How do we tell the difference when the facts are left out? That does not mean that some of the nouveau bourgeoisie would not use some trickery to shake their Jewish ancestry. After all, the same people tend to sit at the ruling tables pre- and post-revolutions, the learned ones. But at last they were moving ever further away from being crypto-Jews, intent on applying the biblical recipe to subvert the entire Kingdom of France. The actions were necessary to remove a criminal mafioso system and replace it with something that smells like the beginnings of freedom from oppression and extortion. There is nothing wrong with being a Jew or any other ethnic group. Anyone, Jew or not, who thinks to be better than everybody else should be brought back to earth. After the Nasi fled to Girona, Philip allowed some Jews to return. A French administration with illiterate Christians might have been hard to operate. Arriving in Girona, we have 13th century brothers that were born as greats. Rabbi Moses ben Nahman Gerondi, popularly known as Maimonides and also known as Ramban, was born in Girona during the year of the flight to Spain. He studied and lived in Girona. His wisdom accepted 3 layers: the Mishnah, the Talmud, and the early Geonim, tying him to the Rashidun and the Quran. The three layers were beyond doubt or criticism. We bow before them, and even when the reason for their words is not quite evident to us, we submit to them. His counterpart, remember, al-Rahman, can later be identified in Cordoba, going by Rambam, Maimonides. This guy remembered that the great sage Rabbi Meir was Emperor Nero's son. While discounting that we have another namesake in the nest, I do not know how to let this genie out of the bottle in a politically correct way. Maimonides became the personal physician of Saladin. Saladin just so happens to be enemy number one for the Abbasids in Baghdad. So were the arrivals in Girona friends or foe of the Abbasids when they came to Narbonne? To study this, we have a look at prevailing cultural traditions in the region of Spanish Aragon. Prophet Muhammad himself will be resurrected to become the Mahdi. His task is to fight side by side with the second Jesus against his sectarian opponent, the Antichrist, despite contemporary literary evidence of all the necessary components of Messianic hopes. Scholarship dismisses the data or the notion of Islam as a Messianic success story, as Christian hysteria, or even, again, as anti-Semitism. Shia Islam has its special type of Mahdi, the hidden one. His existence is based on the belief that the 12th Shia Imam went into occultation, meaning hidden away. He will reappear before Judgment Day. This belief constitutes the core foundation of Shia Islam. Quran 39:32 says, "Thou truly shalt die, O Muhammad, and they too shall die. Then at the day of resurrection ye shall wrangle with one another in the presence of your Lord." And note the other footnote there. Muhammad bin al-Hassan al-Askari, the 12th Imam, born 868, went into occultation around 873-874. Now, there's also literary evidence of contemporary messianic hopes. So if we look at Sebios's history, and A.J. Juice has added some additional comments to kind of guide our reading of this. 12 peoples representing all the tribes of the Jews assembled at the city of Edessa, the Sanhedrin. When the Jews realized that they could not militarily resist him, Heraclius, they promised to make peace. Opening the city gates, they went before him, and Heraclius ordered that they should go and stay in their own place. So they departed, taking the road through the desert to Tashkistan. Now, he has probably the area of today's Iranian Kushkistan province to the sons of Ishmael. Both myself and Murad think Tashkistan is in northern Mesopotamia, but nonetheless, we'll go with that. If it was, Baghdad would potentially fit into the Tashkistan if it is in Mesopotamia. So, I'm not sure if A.J. Juice is aware of that or not, but let's move on. The Jews with the Messiah on the throne of David called the Ishmaelites to their aid and familiarized them with the relationship they had through the books of the Old Testament. Although the Ishmaelites were convinced of their close relationship, they were unable to get a consensus from their multitude, for they were divided from each other by religion. In that period, a certain one of them, a man of the sons of Ishmael named Muhammad, a merchant, became prominent. A sermon about the way of truth, supposedly at God's command, was revealed to them, and Muhammad, a Messiah, taught them to recognize the God of Abraham, especially since he was informed and knowledgeable about Mosaic history, biblical history. Because the command had come from on high, divine revelation, he ordered them all to assemble together an alliance and to unite in faith, a new religion. He said God promised that country, Canaan, Israel, to Abraham and to his son after him for eternity. And what had been promised was fulfilled during that time when God loved Israel. Now, however, you are the sons of Abraham, and God shall fulfill the promise made to Abraham and his son on you. Only love the God of Abraham and go and take the country which God gave to your father Abraham. No one can successfully resist you in war, since God is with you, i.e., the conquest of the Promised Land. Another footnote, there's quite a few in relation to that page in his paper, refers to scholars being afraid to acknowledge the Jewish link for fear of being labelled anti-Semitic. Now, I just want to point out that obviously scholars should avoid being anti-Semitic, but at the same time, scholars should state what the truth is, whether it's fair or foul, not giving any get out of jail card to any group of people just for fear of offending them, you know. But anyway, this is what Robert Hoyland says in relation to Sebios, the Jews, and the rise of Islam. And there's a little bit in the brackets which I'll read first. Hoyland, in an essay about Sebios and in commenting about Crone and Cook's Judeo-Hagerism, summed up the current consensual and dismissive stance in Muslim and Middle Eastern scholarship in regards to a Judaic, Messianic, or Arab-Jewish involvement in the advance of the Muslim conquerors. Gill simply says that one need not ascribe any historical significance to this kind of story, referring to Sabia's account of the appearance of Mahmud and his connection to Judaism. Wansborough declares that this topos of Jewish complicity belongs to the standard ingredients of Historia Ecclesiastica, and so does not really admit of historical conclusions. And for Griffith, the account fairly seethes with anti-Jewishness and is not a trustworthy historical statement. Their supposition would seem to be that if a Christian asserts Jewish influence on or connection with some object, he must be intending to discredit that object, and so his testimony is to be disregarded. And perhaps this is the reason why the suggestion of a Jewish influence on the origins of Islam is overlooked by many because they're afraid of being accused of being anti-Semitic. In the 16th century, the founder of Iranian Safavid dynasty portrayed himself as the hidden imam to 12-hour Shiism. He is in the direct lineage of the Marzutran Ali, the first Jewish imam of Shia Islam, aka Exarch Haman I, aka Abdallah ibn al-Zubair. Now, something occurred to me about this Ali person. If we take Abdul Allah ibn al-Zubair and take the A from Abdul, take the AL from Allah, and take the I from Ibn, we can see A.J. Juice's construction of Ali there. So the suggestion is Ali is just a way of referring to Abdul Allah ibn al-Zubair. So Ali and Abdul Allah ibn al-Zubair are one and the same person. And if he is also Haman the First, that is quite something. Now, one idea that I have is maybe this exarch who seems to disappear off the map. He's an exarch for about 2 years and then disappears. Where does he go to? It's not really explained. Is it possible that he may have gone to Spain? This would be like 100 years before Rahman did. It's a question mark. It's just an idea. It's worth investigating that. And what would that mean for the whole story then? If we have someone in the late 7th century already moving to Spain and setting things up long before the conquest. So it's worth considering. The magnitude of betrayal that comes with this to the subjugated Persian people is beyond imagination. Their Iranian Jewish leaders knew how to play with the deadly power of organized religion and radicalized Islam for their own gains. But in Persia, the age of the Mahdi, the Messianic age, had begun. The heroic crusaders have come forth with crowns of happiness on their heads. The Mahdi's period has begun. The light of eternal life has dawned upon the world. The Safavids declared 12-hour Shia Islam as compulsory state religion. dissolved the Sunni brotherhoods, and ordered the execution of all who refused to comply. In its wake, they re-engineered Shia Islam and tradition as they saw fit to turn it into the deadly weapon that it is today. Around the same time, the revolt of the Brotherhoods goes down in Valencia, south of Barcelona, part of Spanish Aragon. In its wake, a mysterious leader emerged in the spring of 1522, a Messiah, the Hidden One. He announced himself to be illiterate, a marker for a professional Jewish Messianic contender, not unlike the illiterate Prophet Muhammad. Forced converted Jews and Muslims picked up on that clue. The Hidden One unveiled the directions given to him to save Valencia and to conquer the Promised Land. To this end, he was creating a new religion and was almost adored as God, proposing a new covenant. He also sought support from Emperor Charles V. Hearsay has it that the Hidden One was a converso from Andalusia. Just because it is hearsay does not always make it untrue. In this case, the Hidden One is crypto-Jewish. Maldonado writes simply, "The Hidden One was so skilled in making miracles with marvelous artifices and in creating a new religion that in Al-Jatshiras and Jatdiva he was almost adored as God." So that's the reference to that. Now, the Hidden One used as Inquisition propaganda. But to connect these events with Girona and their arrival in Narbonne, we have a gap of 400 to 700 odd years to fill since the Jewish exarch prince's arrival. The epithet, the Hidden One, was used for propaganda by the inquisitors of the Catholic Church in the reconquest of Granada from Muslims. Ferdinand II of Aragon, at the turn of the 16th century, to become monarch of the whole world, branded himself as the Hidden One. The Hidden One will destroy all the Moors of Spain, and not only will His Highness conquer the Kingdom of Granada very quickly, but he will subject all Africa, and he will even conquer the Holy House of Jerusalem, and he will place with his very own hands the pennant of Aragon on Mount Calvary, and he will be Emperor of Rome and of the Turks and of all Spain. He will install a Holy Father of very saintly life, and he will not only be emperor but monarch of the whole world. Take heed that the saintly and beloved King Ferdinand of ours is the Hidden One, and this is declared to be by St. John and St. Isidore in their works, and he will greatly resemble King David when he was alive. You should serve and aid this noble king to destroy all the Moors and heretics, thus glorifying our Holy Catholic Church. Ferdinand the Catholic, as he was called, promoted himself as Ferdinand Incarnate. He is the grandfather of Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, the same Charles that the Hidden One just asked for support. Spanish Christians knew about a sleeping emperor of the last days for at least 300 years already. It appears to go back to Emperor Frederick II, the conqueror of Jerusalem in the 13th century, and the Spanish king Ferdinand III, the saint. He was revived as the new David. Remarkably, his tomb features plaques with dates in the Hebrew, Islamic, and Gregorian calendars, with texts in Hebrew, Arabic, Latin, and Castilian. It appears that they were sitting on Jewish thrones wrapped in Shia cloths and adorned with Jesus' crown of thorns. Does it come as a surprise that Spanish Aragon was a hotbed of Messianic agitators to conquer the Promised Land from under the feet of its non-Jewish citizens? Just to name two, a Jew by the name of Abu Lafia from Zaragoza, east from Barcelona, who was immediately followed by the Prophet of Avila. Not unlike today, they've been rocking the entire planet in the service of their overtly pious Jewish mission for hundreds of years in their covert Marzutran mission, forever actually. Does it dawn? This is why we have so many mosques in Iran pointing to Narbonne and Girona, but not to Cordoba. From Girona, they maintained and expanded their extortion business. Machmed's brother, Vidal bin Veniste de Porta, Bailey or Bale, became treasurer of Barcelona, Girona, and Lerida, Spain. He was the chief tax collector of Spanish Catalonia, Aragon, and Castile, side by side with the Knights Templar who helped squeezing coins at sword point. Why would Vidal bin Veniste be treasurer in Barcelona when Muslims preach to hate Jews? For whom were they farming taxes before the Spanish Reconquista of the Catholic Church? For themselves? Then we have Isaac Benveniste Nasi, the physician from Narbonne of the King of Aragon. He was the father of Shichet Benveniste Nasi, also a physician and political advisor to the kings of Aragon. He lived first in Barcelona and later in Zaragoza, whence comes Abu Lafia. In the second half of the 14th century to the beginning of the 15th, we have Vidal Benveniste de la Cavalleria. The Cavalleria was an honourable title for having been tax farmers. It widens and boils down to deep-seated historical trauma in every Christian and Muslim community in the Iberian Peninsula. They were managed by a Jewish functionary of the crown called Arabi, or also called Al-Arabi. They were in charge of the royal administration and judicial system, including enforcement and tax collection and banking. The military, of course, slave trade, not unlike the spiritual and secular division in Baghdad. One rabbi was responsible for spiritual questions. The crown rabbi was head over the Arabis and sat at the table of kings. The apex of this genius corruption is that the crown rabbi oversaw the kingdom's audits of the Arabi administration. Such positions over subservient populations are attested for centuries in Castile, Aragon, and Navarra. Portugal followed their model of punitive administration by Jewish overlords. We find them with Muslim names as Suleiman ibn Yaqzan al-Kalbi al-Arabi. No, al-Arabi does not mean the Bedouin, who was governor of Barcelona and Girona in 777 AD, or his contemporary governor of Zaragoza, Hussein of Zaragoza. History forgot to hand down their Jewish names. Enough. How is this even possible? Ishio-Bokht, a Persian metropolitan of Fars 730 to 780, explains the basics in the preface of his composition on the laws. I have observed that there are many differences among people in the matter of laws, not only from religion to religion, from language to language, and from nation to nation, but also in one and the same religion and nation and language, as in the religion of Christianity. While the Jews in every place have one law, as also there are of the Magians, and likewise also those who now rule over us among the Christians, the laws which are determined in the land of the Romans are distinct from those in the land of the Persians, and they in turn are distinct from those in the land of the Aramaeans, and different from Awaz, and different in Meishan, and likewise also in other places. Thus also from district to district and city to city there are many differences in the matter of laws. And though the religion of Christians is one, the law is not one and the same, and we shall speak of the reason for that later. So the point he's making is that, like other religions and ethnicities, the Jews in every place have one law. They're consistent. They unite together around one consistent law. The difference is that one group is cohesive, highly educated, and loyal to a single Jewish leader who rules over large domains. The other group is entangled in division. But here it gets fascinating. The legal uncertainty in the Christian world was broadly managed by feudal Jewish overlords in the judicial system. Without any basis in fact, I submit that the cohesive group had cohesive laws but appears to give incohesive laws to the incohesive group. They did not suffer from insomnia. They must not have been able to stop laughing. Brought to A simple point: who divides rules. Their system of privilege was so stable in their own interest that it endured over hundreds and hundreds of years. It was true stable genius. So what he's suggesting is that the Jewish leaders were so strong simply because they kept cohesive. They had the one law for them all, for themselves, and were happy to see division and multiplicity of laws in Christian domains. Let us take the city of Segovia. There, the crown rabbi of Castile lived in a house large enough to later accommodate a full-blown monastery. So it's the image on the right, and it's marked as number 2 there with a circle around it. The crown of Castile lived in the Alcazar of Segovia, a huge castle towering over the town below. Right image, number 1 satellite view. Okay, so that castle top left is that one. Which of the two might be bigger, kings or rabbis? Were they equals? Right, so here we see it again. From here, the voyage of Christopher Columbus was financed. The old Jewish quarter housed a large Jewish community, number 4, with the old synagogue, number 3 there. The state of populist education has it that Jewish quarters were like Jewish ghettos that were imposed by Christian authorities to segregate them. Given that the Porto de San Andres is a city gate that is controlled by the Jewish quarter, I continue to be amazed by the absence of questions. So, in other words, he's saying some quarter this is. The real power is inside the walls of these places. And A.J. Juice basically says simply, it is the other way around. During these centuries, the ghettos did not serve to keep Jews locked in, it served to keep non-Jews, who were herded like cattle, out. 2 words come to mind: feudal and serfdom, defining Europe from the 9th century. That is no coincidence. From the 15th century onward, the system was overthrown with rivers of blood inflicted by those intent to hanging on to their oppressive privileges. Remember this next time you marvel at medieval castles in Europe. You will no longer be able not to. In 1492, it was Spain's turn to change. The Alhambra decree led to the expulsion of Jews and is portrayed as one of history's greatest anti-Semitic catastrophes. In its wake, the Jewish Benveniste Mendes clan was the most important to arrive in the Netherlands. They were engaged in lucrative businesses such as spice and gem trading and banking. It was a new Jerusalem. So bear in mind that what we're seeing is, first, the Jewish Nasi was in Narbonne and there was an expulsion. And the Jewish Nasi then takes up residence in Girona. And then in 1492 or thereabouts, there was another expulsion of all the Jews out of Spain. Why was that? Because of the fact that they had so much power and control in their country, doing, as A.J. Juice points out, tax farming. And so people just had enough of it. So there is a pattern. There's a reason behind it. It's not just a simple case of anti-Semitism. The better part is that henceforth the dual government with a throne of Muhammad and a throne of David can be recognized at the court of the Ottomans. While what surfaces pains me, it serves no purpose to sugarcoat this. In plain English, from Narbonne emerges a Jewish dictator in Europe in the original meaning of the word, a dictator who would expand his tyrannical tax collector business wherever opportunity struck, while ensuring that the population remained illiterate through the power of organized religion. A true tyrant. Without making an imprudent connection, would we be surprised to learn that the word tyrant emerges in Old French in the 13th century? Plato deemed tyranny the fourth and worst disorder of a state. Tyrants lacked the very faculty that is the instrument of judgment, reason. The tyrannical man is enslaved because the best part of him, reason, is enslaved, and likewise the tyrannical state is enslaved because it too lacks reason and order. For what we have learned so far, the intent of the biblical system with a Jewish king ruling the known world in the name of the God of the Israelites is precisely to establish an illegitimate tyrannical regime that oppresses ordinary citizens through exploiting their knowledge about the superstitious nature of human beings in favor of a minority. To reach their end, they are willing to scorch the entire planet. Islam is merely a case study for this mechanism. They do not lack judgment. Their intelligence is far superior to everybody else's, and they know what they're doing. They lack humanity. They are in no need of that. They are the Word of God. They call their leaders slaves in full awareness of Plato's warning. How to achieve the impossible: instigate war and finance both sides in return for extraordinary privileges. Profit either way, tax farming, divide and rule. That is their business model. I would not be surprised to one day learn that the Jewish Marzutran inner family conflicts are part of their theatrical plot, engineered under cover of organized religion, and that they are working together to reach their ends through secret assemblies, the Sanhedrin. Moderns have no trouble to laugh about the pagan system where ruling families put themselves over their superstitious subjects by placing their own as gods into the pantheon. Whoever refused to prostrate before them was cut a foot short, and there were many brave but impaled men. But these same moderns cannot fathom that they are being laughed at for not realizing that a ruling family operates with a minor differentiator of a single god but aspires to put itself over kings and emperors of other ruling families. Whoever refuses to prostrate before them is scripturally singled out for termination. Right now, today, it happens to the Palestinians under the mantle of compassion. I wonder how long it will take until European citizens come to a reckoning that their taxes are feeding current royal overlords whose riches and privileges find their roots in this genius system. In the business of ruling others, you must be surprised for not having been overthrown more often. The most despicable part is that they pull all Jews along to the manger. I did not see it for a long time. I could never have imagined that Narbonne and Girona connect to the Karite, and therefore the Bostonais lineage and the Alide lineage, true to the original Quranic covenant and the Doctrina Jacobi. We were not supposed to know that they did not forget their royal ancestry. With the cultural backdrop, the hidden one appears to belong to Ali's Karaite half, while the rebellious Karite nature belongs to Bustane Umar's half. Together they are united as one. The rest of Spain starts out through Al Rahman's Fihri branch, the Jewish brother lineage of Bustane or Umar from Exlar Canine. Should a courageous publisher happen to find me, I will put it all in another book. So that ends episode 11. In our last episode, the final of this series, we will wrap it all together in conclusion. See you all very soon. Bye bye.